Welcome to the Radiant Reset, the podcast and channel for midlife women who refuse to fade into the background. I'm Beryl, and today we're talking about the art of beginning again. And if you're ready to reclaim your confidence and reinvent your life with purpose and passion, you're in exactly the right place. So let's dive in. Just after I turned 50, I started to think that my best years were behind me. I started seeing someone that I didn't recognize. I felt like I no longer really mattered. I think it may have been due to lockdown and all the rules imposed on us. The world was in crisis, and so was I. I guess many of us were at that point, and it was an actual insane time for the world. But my zest for life had vanished. My confidence had gone. My sense of purpose buried under decades of putting everyone else first. And I remember standing in my kitchen one afternoon, sunlight streaming through the window, and feeling absolutely nothing. Not sadness, not anger, just numbness. Like something was wrong, and I wasn't sure exactly what it was or how to fix it. I'd been living a somewhat pretend life for so long, constantly dimming my flame around certain people and sometimes shining when I was in the right company, but only then. And I'd actually forgotten what it felt like to be fully, vibrantly alive. I was thinking, what's the point of it all? What are we doing here on the planet? And then something shifted. Not overnight, not in a sort of dramatic kind of way, although that did happen sometime after this with some very necessary realizations. But at that time, I heard a whisper from deep within me that said, this isn't the end. It's time for a change. This is your beginning. At first, I dismissed it. I thought, who am I kidding? It's too late to start over. I've missed my chance. I'd already been a very late starter, only having gotten married and had my son at 40. I'd also moved countries and learned a new language and a new skill as a goldsmith at that time, and had started my jewelry business. And on top of that, I'd also written my first book. Now, surely 10 years later, at 50, it really was too late for any more drastic changes. But that whisper, it didn't go away. It actually got louder, more insistent, until I couldn't ignore it anymore. And today I want to share what I've learned about the art of beginning again. Because if you're here listening to this, I know you felt that little whisper too. You're not too late. You're right on time. Let me be honest with you about something that most people won't say out loud. Midlife can feel like a betrayal. You did everything right. You showed up, you worked hard, you took care of everyone. You thought that you were the good daughter, the devoted partner, the selfless mother, the reliable employee, or whatever roles you played. You followed the script. You played by the rules. And yet here you are wondering, what for? Is this it? Is this all there is? Because maybe your children have grown up and moved on with their own lives. Maybe you've looked around and realized the dreams that you put on hold aren't actually magically materializing. Maybe you've woken up next to someone and thought, when did we become such strangers? Maybe your childhood family that you once knew no longer exists, as in my case. Or maybe you're alone and the future that you imagined looks nothing like the reality you're living or that you expected. The world tells us midlife is about accepting less, smaller dreams, quieter voices, fading gracefully into the background while everyone else gets on with their lives. We're supposed to be grateful for what we've had and resign ourselves to what we've lost. like a cow going out to pasture. Yes, well, I've come to terms that in this lifetime, some things will no longer be possible. For instance, at 56, I know I'll never be an Olympic skier or a prima ballerina, although I can still enjoy skiing, even though I am self-taught. And I just love dancing away in my kitchen with friends. But we're told to age gracefully, which really means become invisible without any complaints. Act your age, dress more conservatively, cut your hair, tone things down, go out less. We're told our value was tied to our youth, our fertility, our ability to be useful to others. And now that those things have shifted or changed, we're supposed to what? Just disappear? That's all bullshit. Here's what I've discovered as someone who's walked pretty far along this path of life, stumbled through the darkness, and am actually quite surprised that I'm still alive sometimes. But I found my way back to myself. Midlife isn't the end of my story. It's the plot twist with an exciting new chapter. It's that moment in the movie where everything seems lost, and then all of a sudden the heroine realizes she's been looking at everything in the wrong way. That the power that she's been searching for was actually inside her all along. That her greatest adventure is just beginning. Midlife is the moment when you finally get to ask, what do I actually want? What do I actually want? Not what your mother wanted for you, or not what society expected, not what you thought you were supposed to become when you were 25 and had no idea who you really were yet. What lights you up? What makes your heart sing? What does your soul crave? And here's the beautiful, terrifying, absolutely life-changing truth. You get to begin again. Not because you failed the first time, not because you wasted your life, but because you finally have accumulated enough wisdom, enough self-knowledge, enough hard-won clarity to know what actually matters to you. You get to choose differently now, not from a place of naivety or fantasy, but from a place of deep truth. As someone who's rebuilt her confidence, I'm now 56. I want to share something that changed everything for me. Trusting in life's timing. Because for years, for decades really, I fought against where I was. I carried so much regret, so much. I should have done this sooner, or I should have done that. So much comparing myself to women who seemed to have it all figured out while I was still fumbling around in the dark. I looked at women my age who were successful, confident, thriving, happily married, and I thought, what's wrong with me? Why haven't I got there yet? I thought I'd missed my chance, that I should have figured things out sooner. I thought that reinvention was for younger women with more time, more energy, more everything. I was so angry with myself for wasting so much time being stuck, being scared, playing small, and having no belief or confidence in myself. Dating the wrong guys, almost missing the boat. I thought that everything was available to everyone else, but not for me. But here's what I've come to understand, what I know now in my bones, in my very soul. You cannot bloom before your season. Think about it. A rose doesn't apologize for not blooming in winter, and an oak tree doesn't berate itself for taking decades to reach its full majesty. Nature understands something that we have forgotten. Everything happens in its right time. The woman you're becoming could only emerge now, not at 25 when you were still figuring out who you were. actually in my 20s, I was pretty together until I started dating narcissists, and I fell down the slippery slope once more, thinking that I wasn't good enough. But anyway, perhaps you thought you could emerge at 35 or 40 like me when you were building your life and career and family and raising children, or at 45 when you were still holding on to who you thought you were supposed to be. But now is the time, because now you have something you didn't have before, which is wisdom. You've lived, you've loved, you've lost, you've learned what matters and what doesn't. You've discovered what your non-negotiables are. You've figured out what you're willing to tolerate and what you absolutely refuse to accept anymore. And you've earned the right to stop performing and start being. You've paid your dues trying to please everyone else. You've spent decades shape-shifting to fit other people's expectations, and you've contorted yourself into 1,000 different versions of who you thought you should be. But now you finally have permission, your own permission, to just be yourself. Let me tell you what that wisdom has given you that your younger self didn't have. Clarity. You know what's truly important now. You've lived long enough to distinguish between what society tells should matter and what actually lights up your soul. And courage. You've survived things that you never thought you could. You've most likely made it through heartbreak, loss, disappointments, failure. You know you're stronger than you ever imagined. And authenticity. You're done pretending, done performing, done twisting yourself into shapes that don't fit. You've learned that being liked by everyone means being truly understood by no one. Perspective is the other thing. You understand that most of what we worry about doesn't actually matter. You've developed the ability to see what's worth your energy and what's just noise. And resilience. You've been knocked down and gotten back up more times than you can count. You know how to survive. More than that, you know how to rise. This wisdom, it's your superpower. And when you step into your reinvention from this place, grounded in all you've survived and all that you've learned, you don't just rebuild your life, you create something more beautiful, more authentic, more you than anything you could have ever imagined in your younger years. Your younger self was building a life based on what she thought she was supposed to want and do and was supposed to be. Your current self gets to build a life based on what you actually know you want and need. So if you've been beating yourself up for not having it all figured out by now, I want you to hear this. You're not behind, you're not late, you're not broken, you're right on time for your most beautiful beginning. You're not starting over, you're coming home to yourself. So what does it actually mean to begin again at midlife? Well, let me tell you what it's not. It's not about throwing away your entire life and starting from scratch. It's not about pretending that the past didn't happen, or that you don't have responsibilities, or that you can just run away to Bali and find yourself. It's not about becoming someone you're not, or reinventing yourself into some fantasy version that has nothing to do with who you actually are. And it's definitely not about adding more pressure to get it right this time or achieve some perfect transformation. Beginning again is about remembering who you are beneath all the roles that you've played throughout your life. It's about peeling back the layers of good daughter, devoted wife, selfless mother, reliable employee, perfect friend, all the identities that you've worn like armor, and asking, who am I when I'm not performing for anyone else? It's about excavating your true self from beneath decades of conditioning, expectations, and people pleasing. Here's what that looked like for me. And I'm going to be really honest with you because I think that honesty is the only thing that actually helps. I had to have some brutally honest conversations with myself. And I mean brutal, the kind that make you cry in the shower and question everything you thought you knew about yourself and about life. As a child, I learned that acceptance had to be earned, that love came with conditions, and that my worth was always in question. I grew up with a mother who couldn't love me the way that I needed to be loved. And that wound shaped everything about how I moved through the world. For decades, I carried that wound with me like a stone in my pocket, always trying to prove I was enough, always seeking validation from people who absolutely couldn't and wouldn't give it to me, always shrinking to make others comfortable, always dimming my light and working twice as hard to feel half as worthy. I became a perfectionist. I became hyper responsible. I became someone who said yes when I meant no, who smiled when I was dying inside, who dimmed my flame so others could shine. And you know what? I was exhausted, soul tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. But at some point, I realized the only permission I ever needed was my own, not my mother's, not society's, not anyone else's, just mine. I taught myself how to break free from the patterns that no longer served me. I confronted my past. I learned to recognize when I was people pleasing and to stop mid-sentence and say what I actually thought instead of what they thought I should say. I learned to trust my own voice, even when it shook, even when others didn't like what I had to say. And I discovered that confidence isn't something you're born with or something you either have or don't have. Confidence is something you build brick by brick, choice by choice, brave moment by brave moment. It's built every time you speak your truth, even when your voice shakes. Set a boundary, even though you're terrified of disappointing someone. Or choose yourself, even when it feels selfish. Or show up as you, even when you're not sure you're enough. And take up space, even when you've been conditioned to shrink. And also to say no without explanation, apology, or justification. Every single one of those moments is a brick in your confidence foundation. And now I'm 56 and I'm more visible and unapologetically myself than I've ever been. I've started a YouTube channel and a podcast, something that terrified me because I spent so long believing I had something valuable to say, but lacked the confidence. I've created the Radiant Reset community of incredible midlife women who are done being invisible. I'm writing, I'm designing, I'm showing up in ways that would have paralyzed my younger self with fear. And I'm building a life that actually reflects who I am at this stage, not who I thought I had to be. And here's the thing. I'm still scared sometimes. I still have moments of doubt. I still hear that critical voice that says, who do you think you are? But now I answer back. I'm someone who's done playing small. I'm someone who's claimed her right to begin again. I'm someone who refuses to spend the rest of her life wondering, what if? If I can do it, someone who spent 50 years feeling not good enough, well, you can too. Whatever beginning again looks like for you, it starts with one simple decision. I matter. My dreams matter. My desires matter. My life matters. And I'm done waiting for permission to live it. So here's what I want you to know, wherever you are right now, whether you're listening to this in your car, on a walk, doing dishes, lying in bed in the middle of the night because you can't sleep, you don't need to have it all figured out to begin. You don't need a detailed plan. You don't need to know exactly where you're going. You don't need all the answers before you actually take the first step. You don't need permission from anyone, not your partner, not your children, not your friends, not your family. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment. Because here's the secret. There is no perfect moment. There's only now and the decision to start anyway. You don't need to feel fully confident before you begin. Confidence comes from doing the thing that scares you, not before doing the thing. You just need to be willing to trust that whisper inside you, the one that says, there's more for me. I know there's more. Because there is so much more. Beginning again starts with one simple question. What if? What if your best years aren't behind you but ahead of you? What if your wisdom is exactly what the world needs right now? And what if this next chapter could be your most radiant, most authentic, most joy-filled yet? What if you stopped waiting and started living? What if you're not too old, but finally old enough? Old enough to know what you want, brave enough to go after it. What if everything you've been through was preparing you for what comes next? Imagine with me for a moment, what would your life look like if you gave yourself full permission to want what you want? What would change if you stopped shrinking and started expanding? What becomes possible when you decide that your dreams matter just as much as everyone else's? Who could you become if you stopped waiting to be chosen and chose yourself? What would you create if you trusted that it's not too late, that you have time, that your story is still being written? I created the Radiant Reset because I believe deeply with everything in me that midlife women have had enough of being invisible. We're done shrinking. We're done waiting. We're done apologizing for taking up space. We're done believing the lie that our time has passed. Our time is now. We're not fading. We're rising. We're not ending. We're beginning. We're not less than we were. We're more wise, more clear, more powerful, more ourselves than we've ever been. And if you're feeling the pull to reinvent, to reclaim your confidence, to heal what needs healing, to create a life that finally feels like yours, you're not alone. I'm here. This community is here. And we're all walking this path together. Imperfectly, bravely, beautifully. Your radiant beginning is waiting for you. Not someday, not when you're ready, not when conditions are perfect. Now, all you have to do is give yourself permission to begin. If this resonates with you, if something in your soul said yes while you were listening, I'd love to stay connected and support you on this journey. First, if you're ready to take action, on your reinvention right now, I've created the Midlife Reinvention Roadmap. It's a complete step-by-step blueprint that walks you through rediscovering who you are, building unshakable confidence, and creating your next beautiful chapter. You'll find the link in the description below. And if you've struggled with difficult family relationships, especially with narcissistic mothers or toxic dynamics and toxic people, my book, Breaking Free from the Mother Wound, might be exactly what you need. It's available on Amazon, and I'll put that link in the description as well. You can also join my newsletter, my Substack. Almost every week I send inspiration, practical tools, and real talk about midlife reinvention straight to your inbox. No fluff, no toxic positivity, just the honest, helpful stuff that actually makes a difference. You can sign up at berylDingemans.com or on my Substack. All details will be in the show notes. Follow me on Instagram at The Radiant Reset, where I share daily encouragements behind the scenes of my own imperfect reinvention journey and real conversations with incredible midlife women who are rewriting their stories. Subscribe to this podcast and this YouTube channel, because every week we're diving deep into the messy, beautiful work of reclaiming our confidence and creating lives we actually love. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. I also want you to know I read every message, every comment, every email. If this episode touched something in you, if you have a story to share, if you just need someone to remind you that you're not alone, just reach out. I'm here. Remember, you're not too late, you're not too old, and you're not past your prime. You're just getting started. And your most radiant chapter, it's not behind you, it's right in front of you, waiting for you to step back into it. So take a deep breath, trust that whisper, and begin. Thank you so much for being here today. If this episode resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you'd share it with another midlife woman who needs to hear this. And you never know whose life you might change by simply passing this along. And if you loved this episode, please leave a review and a comment. Give it a thumbs up. It helps other women find this channel and this podcast and join our community of radiant rebels who refuse to fade away. Remember, your most radiant chapter is waiting for you. All you have to do is give yourself permission to begin. I'll see you next week on the Radiant Reset. Until then, keep shining.